Let's continue on. Let's jump back into some of these suggestions, okay? All right, let's jump in, right? Reduce asking for support.
You know, it's really good to start off with a suggestion box classic like quit begging, because not only is suggestion box one of my favorite segments, but the not begging being a staple of every single one is just the icing on the cake. You'd think by now that DSP would notice a pattern, notice that he is frequently asked to not mention support nearly as much as he does, but that would require at least a modicum of self-reflection, and lolcows are just incapable of that for some reason. It's one of the things that makes them lolcows. So I'm glad that we could really showcase that here right off the bat, and you can tell by how long he held the pause after the sentence and the little head shake at the end that he's already irritated. So this should be good.
These segments put you in a bad light and are the exact kind of clips the trolls want. It really comes off as desperate. Regulars already know how to support, and if newcomers don't know, they'll ask. People are smarter than you give them credit for. They'll figure out how to support. If anything, you should add a support command to your chat. When someone asks you, you can simply say, type the support command and you'll know how to support me. It doesn't turn into a long, drawn-out 10 to 30-minute segment about how giving you money that is going to be clicked out of context. It makes you look bad. We don't want another scoring debacle on our hands.
I wanted to let the full suggestion play out so that we heard the whole thing and got all of the context and all of the nuance to it. And this person is, of course, absolutely right. DSP shouldn't mention support nearly as much as he does. People are smarter than he gives them credit for. He thinks that everybody is brain dead stupid. If people really want to support the channel, they'll find a way to do it. They'll figure out the menus, or they'll straight up just ask. There's no reason for him to be bringing up how to support just unprompted like he does. And the idea of having a command in chat would really work for DSP. In fact, he kind of already has one in the form of Nightbot. You know, that bot that's constantly spamming his chat on all of the social medias that you can follow him on and how you can support the channel. It really is his most consistent chatter. So you should be aware of this by now if you watch DSP's content in any form. In fact, Nightbot is one of the truest dents there is, because there's no way that Nightbot could ever switch up on him. Derek might be a sex pest and Jade might be chaired up, but Nightbot will never switch up on the gang. But let's of course see how DSP responds to this, because like I said, he's already irritated.
Well, first of all, the scoring debacle is a whole separate thing. We all know what happened with the scoring debacle 2 years ago, where I was playing a game that really started good and became a piece of dog shit. And I was suffering with it, but people were like demanding that I keep playing it because it's a short game. And then we had an awful night where basically I was feeling awful because the game really pissed me off. And then I looked and literally I made like nothing that night. And I'm like, dude, I just killed myself playing this shitty ass game and essentially, you know, made nothing for it.
A lot of people actually enjoyed Scorn when it came out, DSP. You were the only person I heard that had a problem with it, and then I found out that you were going through the entire game without doing any of the upgrades. So of course the combat was going to be terrible. Of course you weren't going to have any fun. I don't know why you would play a game like that and not get any of the upgrades. And spending time on stream and not getting anything for it in the form of monetary gain is par for the course when you stream, because it's not a consistent income and it never will be. I don't know when DSP is going to come to that realization, but he'll be better off when he does. And so will his audience, because they won't be held to the standard that DSP currently holds them to, which is that they must give him money at all times, no matter what he's playing and no matter how entertaining or not entertaining he's being.
Imagine if you went to work one day and you busted your ass at work and you were just exhausted with that day at work, and then your boss walked up to you and said, oh, by the way, I'm not paying you for today, right?
I absolutely hate this analogy. It's one of DSP's worst analogies because everything is wrong with it. First off, nobody gets paid at the end of the day. Most people get paid at the end of the week, maybe even every other week. So yeah, when I finish a hard day's work at DSP, I do go into the office and they don't pay me. That's just the way it works, because I know my pay is coming later down the line. And guaranteed pay is one of the main differences between being self-employed and just being employed. I know every single day when I go to work to my full-time job that as long as I'm clocked in and doing my job to the best of my ability, I'm going to be paid come the end of the week for the amount of time that I was there. When you're self-employed, that doesn't happen, and that should never be the expectation. You would think that Mr. Business Degree over here would understand that, especially after running his so-called business for what, 15 years now or something? But somehow he still doesn't understand how his own business works. And the only thing that he has to do on his streams every day is be entertaining, and he's not even good at that. He actively fails all of the time. So even if he was guaranteed pay at the end of every stream, if he was just entertaining, more often than not, he would deserve $0 come the end of the stream, because he so frequently is not entertaining. The guy actively sucks fun out of every single stream. It's like he does it on purpose or something.
So what happened is I exploded on the audience, which I shouldn't have done. But I mean, that's 2 years ago. We've talked about that. I don't do that anymore because that's awful, right? Or at least I try not to do stuff like that anymore because we know how awful that was.
I like that we switched up from I don't do that anymore to I try not to do that anymore, because he knows that he still does it, and there are very clearly instances in which he's done that. But by making it vague and saying that we try not to do that, he's covering his own ass, so that if you do pull those up in front of him, he says that that's not the norm, and those are just cherry-picked examples. Just like he did on the Side Scrollers interview with his racist joke. The fact that it happened at all is honestly insane, and the fact that there's more than one occurrence of it happening is even wilder. If you ask me, there's no coming back from that.
But in general, I don't like asking for support at all. If I had to never ever talk about support, I never would. Really, like I wouldn't even bother. Do you think I like saying, oh, by the way, please, support the stream with this, and this? No, I don't like doing that. That's the opposite of what a streamer wants to do. A streamer wants to stream fun content. It's not fun to have to bring up ways to contribute and to say, by the way, guys, today is a slow stream.
Then don't bring it up, DSP, because just like your scheduled DSP, you're the only person that's in charge of the words that come out of your mouth. Nobody can force you to say anything. Nobody has a weapon to your head telling you that you have to beg on stream. I mean, if Kat is on the other side of the camera doing exactly that, let us know. But until then, I'm going to assume that you're the one that's responsible for all of your begging. And when it comes to the question of, do you think that I like begging on stream? Yes, DSP, I honestly think that you do. I think it's your favorite thing to do. If you didn't like to do it, you wouldn't do it nearly as much as you do. And I think that you really thrive off that dopamine hit that you get when you do a beg and it is successful and you see the tips coming in. I think it fires off the chemicals in your brain that make you happy. I think that's why you continue to stream the way that you do. Because there's so many other ways that you could get the same amount of support from your dents by just doing other things. But you refuse to do that. You want to put in as low effort as possible and then demand the money because it makes you feel good when you get the money.
But the bottom line is that's my livelihood. All right. Unlike most other content creators out there who have opportunities outside of just their live streams to make funds, I don't. I cannot get sponsorship opportunities. I cannot get partnership opportunities for multiple reasons, mostly because everyone on the internet has dumped on me for 10 years, unfairly slandering, defaming me, and treating me like the internet whipping boy. No company is going to want me to be a spokesperson for their product, because if I ever did, my trolls would immediately go to their website, to their socials, and bombard them with fucking nasty shit, which would immediately make them say, why the hell did we do this? The whole point is to make our product look good and have more people buy it or experience it. And instead, all we have is a bunch of trolls harassing us online. So what happened here? I don't get that. So because I don't have those supplementary levels of income, I don't have any other income sources outside of these streams and the revenue I make on YouTube behind the scenes, right? That's it. Okay, the one other thing is Patreon, right? Which is very small. So maybe $200 to $300 a month I'll make on Patreon, if that. Okay, so that's a very different situation.
He's always so back and forth on his sponsorship style situation. Because when it's convenient for him to play victim, he tells you that he can't get sponsorships because of the trolls online, dude, and all of the harassment that they send to these companies, and who would want to work with him? But when he wants to act like Mr. Hotshot and puff his chest out and act like he's the hottest shit on the planet, he has integrity and he doesn't want to shell out. He pretends like he gets these sponsorship offers and doesn't take them simply because he has the integrity. When we all know that that's not the reality. The reality is what he said, that no company wants to work with him, and it's not because of the detractors, it's because he's a piece of shit and nobody likes him. Why would you want to get a spokesperson that nobody likes? I mean, how many products do you really think that you're going to push when you have Dolph Pigler over here as your spokesperson? I mean, this guy has an innate talent to make people go completely against their opinions and morals just to see his downfall. So he's not exactly the best candidate for these companies to be considering when thinking about sponsorships.
In fact, I would say I'm in one of the most unique situations there are, because most people who are of the stature that I am, meaning not very big, I'm a very small time guy when it comes to my streams, when it comes to the content I put out. I still have a ton of support because I've been around for over 15 years, because there's people who absolutely love the content I put out, despite the fact that so many people crap on me. They like me and want to see me persevere and continue through. So I have way more support than most people of my stature on the internet, right? Another person who gets like 300 viewers on a stream and a few hundred views on a video isn't likely to make a living doing it. I can, because I'm lucky, because I've been around so long and I've persevered through so much adversity, that there's people who actually appreciate and understand that. They like my content for being such a long time person doing it. And that's why. I mean, I'm just different. I'm a different animal than most other people who do this for a living. They all have to follow the algorithm. They all have to push and shill and do all that stuff. And I don't do that.
And that's just pig speak, for I have the biggest and most consistent whales out of a lot of content creators online. And they love bankrolling this sinful lifestyle that I live. So I don't have to improve my content. I don't have to be entertaining, and I don't have to do what anybody wants me to do. Because those few people who bankroll my life are going to continue to bankroll my life, because they don't really have an option. Sound good? Sounds good to me. And by the way, the IRS agrees.
But because I don't do all that other shit that they do, because essentially I don't have opportunity to do it, I have to focus on basically making a living on streams. So it very, very much stands to reason that on a day when I'm streaming and I have a slow day where I make almost nothing on my streams, that's a day when it's a bust for me. Like, I didn't make any money to pay my bills, to support my family, to do the things I need to do to make a living and keep this business running. That's a scary thought to think about that. You mean like one day could make or break you? Yeah. Yeah, I'm not far ahead enough where I can just say, oh, I could have a whole slow week and everything's good. I can't. If I had a slow week, I can't pay bills, you know? And that sucks. I don't like living like that, but that's the situation that life has tossed me into.
But that isn't the situation that life tossed you into, DSP, because you absolutely had a choice on what you decided to do for the rest of your life to make a living, to fund your lifestyle, to pay for all of the things that you wanted to buy, and to support your family. If you were really concerned about not being able to provide for your cat, then you would have found a 9-to-5. You would have worked full-time somewhere, because that sort of concern is something that fuels you to do better and actually put in the time and effort. But providing for your family isn't what concerns you the most, DSP. Supporting the household that you operate is not your main concern. It's the gin, and it's the WWE Champions polls. And I guess luckily for everybody in that house except for Jasper, you make enough money to keep the roof over your head and to keep the polls flowing.
And we could sit here and argue all day about what's a better thing, to have a 9-to-5 job with a salary, or to be a YouTuber who's like my stature and fluctuating income and it's not stay. You know, that's neither here nor there. And truth be told, with all the hardships that I go through here financially, it's still better than any other job I've ever had. Every other job that I've had, it's this semblance of safety and stability that doesn't exist. In corporate America specifically, you can be cut at any moment for any reason, and there's nothing you can do about it. I've experienced it firsthand. I'm being complimented one day for going above and beyond. I'm receiving awards for the amount of work that I did, and then 2 months later, I'm laid off, you know? So it doesn't matter what you're doing. There's never stability. And with YouTube, at least I've been doing this now since 2011, and again, through your support, it's allowed me to say, hey, the best job I've ever had. I have control of my destiny. Right? As opposed to having to answer to some boss that at any moment could shift around and kick me out. It's never going to happen if I'm an independent internet content creator.
This is not a flex, and I'm eternally grateful for all of the great things that have happened in my life, but I've never been laid off and I've never been fired. And the fact that DSP was either fired or let go from pretty much every single job that he's ever held is more telling about DSP than it is about corporate America and how jobs work in this country. Because even in at-will states where they could fire you for pretty much any reason under the sun, they honestly don't even have to have one. It's so rare that it happens because it's just not worth doing. It's not worth the paperwork. It's not worth hiring a new person and training them. But if DSP was your employee, you could probably justify getting rid of him, because I couldn't imagine anybody that he's ever worked with had anything nice to say about him. I mean, we see what he's like. There's no way you could get anything productive done if DSP is the person that you have to work with on a project. And we've seen how socially inept and unaware he is. So there was probably telltale signs far before he was actually let go that they were looking to get rid of him and that people didn't like him. But of course, he probably ignored all of that so that he could just live in ignorant bliss like he always does, thinking that he's the coolest person ever and everybody loves him.
Yeah, the venue might change. Yeah, the format might change, but I'm still able to have an opportunity to make content for an audience that wants that content. They want it, they want to watch it, they want to digest it, and they want to support it. So that's awesome to know. But a symptom of that is asking for support, especially particularly on a day when it's not forthcoming. You know, for every day where people are ultra supportive, there's probably going to be a day where things are very slow. And the thing is, do they tend to even out? Yeah, but some days nothing's happening. And if I say, hey, guys, just a reminder, please support the stream. You can do a super chat. You can do a membership, a gifted membership, or a tip. Yeah, you might not like being advertised to. I don't either. I hate being advertised to.
I just want to jump in and say that he did not finish that last thought whatsoever. He said that most of the time the good and bad days even out. So yeah, if he has to mention support every once in a while and you might not like being advertised to, that's not a complete thought, DSP. If the good and the bad days typically even out, then there would be no reason to bring up this support because you know eventually that they're going to even out like they typically do. But I'll run it back a little bit so that we can get a fresh start to this train of thought.
Yeah, you might not like being advertised to. I don't either. I hate being advertised to. Annoying ads make me not want to buy the product. When I'm watching TV and it's like the most obnoxious fucking ad possible, it's like, there's no chance in hell I'm ever buying this product. I don't know how they thought that ad was going to get me to sway me to buy their shit. They're a bunch of idiots, right? I think these marketing people today are really dumb. But it is a necessary evil.
Absolutely insane to me that that's his mentality when it comes to advertisements on things like movies and television and video games, but when it comes to his content, it's totally acceptable and in fact a necessary evil. I don't know how he doesn't understand that people are coming with that same mentality when it comes to his begging. They find it absolutely egregious, obnoxious, and outright convinces them to never support DSP in any way possible because he is so obnoxious about it. I've always been a firm believer that people support content and products that they think are are worth their time and money. So if people aren't giving you their time or their money, you must not be worth anything and you need to improve your product or whatever content you are making. I know that that's a foreign concept to DSP because he just wants to be paid for existing, but I think that that's a far more honest way to look at it than begging like DSP does.
Of what kind of, living I make, what kind of content I make. And the truth is, there are people who come by every day who are curious about the content, who don't know what it is. They've heard a bunch of negative things about me, and they're here curious to hear about it for themselves. And, they don't know how to contribute. And so if I just casually mention it every once in a while, then maybe they will. Or maybe there's people who are watching and don't realize, oh man, Phil's having a slow day. Oh, well, now that I know that, I'll chip in. And then they do.
But that shouldn't be the experience, DSP. They shouldn't be concerned about your well-being and your finances when watching your content. They should be there focused on the content and focused on enjoying the content. You're always going on about how these people go to your streams to escape real-world problems, and here they are worrying about whether or not you're doing good financially today. They should probably worry about their own finances. That might even be one of the real-world struggles that they're struggling with, that they're trying to get away from. And then there's you, this 41-year-old man who they're trying to watch play video games, constantly begging. Just make that make sense.
Now, I'll be honest. Yes, I think that it's obnoxious if I keep mentioning it over and over. Or if I have a day where I'm really frustrated, probably because I'm either exhausted or stressed out about stuff, and then I come on the stream and I say things like, oh, what a slow day, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's obnoxious. I agree with you. That's something that I've tried to get better at over the years. The difference here is this. I don't do it constantly. It doesn't matter what people say. I actually don't do it constantly, and I know for a fact because I've actually been tracking myself. I have. I've actually started tracking how often do I actually ask for support and how bad is it and things like that. And I can tell you this, today is way less than what it used to be.
The fact that this is something that you have to track should be telling enough, DSP. It should be telling you that it's far too often and far too egregious. Also, he very specifically not only mentions that he tracks how often he begs, but how bad it is. What does that scale look like to you, DSP? Are you using like a 1 to 10 system, or are you using a good to bad, or like what's up with that? And I don't think that you're the best judge of that, in all honesty. Maybe you should be taking members only polls or something. You just kind of seem like a biased judge when it comes to determining how bad a beg really was.
Basically, this all started around that time because you brought up Scorn. It started around that time of that playthrough when I kind of had a reality check, when I had YouTubers who were watching that clip and calling me out and saying, wow, Phil's a scumbag. And I was like, you know what? They're right. I completely agree with them. When I watch back myself during that stream, I cringe and say, that was awful. Why did I do that? It's emotions. It's being afraid. Because again, a day when I have a bad streaming day literally could mean that within a week or two, I have a day where I'm worried how am I going to pay all my bills because things went badly,
I think that fear is a fantastic motivator, DSP. It motivates you like nothing else ever will. But that makes me beg to question, DSP, how much you really fear being financially destitute, because you haven't really done anything to change the situation that you're constantly finding yourself in. You still always seem to be one bad stream away from being bankrupt. You're still putting on the same boring ass streams that nobody is coming to. You're still putting out the same boring ass content day in and day out, making no gains, really. You'd think if you were as scared about not being able to pay your bills as you say that you are, you would have done something about it, done something drastic, completely revamped your channels, come up with a new business strategy, or hell, even got a real job.
But that's something that I have to get better at as a human, and I make mistakes, and I realize there are times when things are going bad. For example, when the whole debacle happened 2 months ago with all the fake memberships, and all of a sudden the channel is exploding with memberships, and everyone thinks everything's going great. It's literally the opposite. Like, I'm getting thousands of these memberships and getting paid like $1 per 1,000. So normally I would be making all this income and I'm actually losing tons of income and it hasn't come back. This is just a matter of fact right now, is that this channel is way down on revenue because those memberships screwed everything up. They threw a big monkey wrench into the way that stuff works. And now so many people got the free memberships. No one paid for one for like 2 months. That is starting to come back now. And I'm grateful for that those of you who are coming back and becoming members legit and gifting legit memberships, thank you for that. But it's taking a couple months now to kind of bounce back from it. And that's awful because now I'm affected by it. And so I tell you that because people wonder, gee, how are you doing with memberships? And, blah, blah, blah. So I answered, it's like, oh, so you're asking for support? What? No, I'm just telling you what happened because people noticed there was an insane amount of gifted memberships being given out every day on the stream. People had questions. I'm giving you answers, but somehow that just becomes the next, you're begging for support kind of a deal. You know what I'm saying?
This is just DSP demonstrating that he doesn't understand what a subtle beg is when it comes to his content. It's these segments that he does where he's not directly asking for support, but he's letting you know that everything is going awry and that he is going to be financially destitute very soon. That things behind the scenes are just not going well and he has all sorts of bills to pay and the funds, they're just not coming in, you guys. He's not directly asking for support, but he's letting you know that everything is not going great and it would be really appreciated if you did. The subtle beg is a classic on DSP's content, and he's either willfully ignorant of it or just outright lying that he doesn't know it exists. But it is nice to get constant confirmation that the Argentinian war is going very well in the favor of the Argentinians. So while I can't condone any of those Argentinian style ops, what I can say is, of course, big ups to all of the Argentinian styles. You guys are definitely fighting a good fight and you're putting in the work. Hopefully the war is over soon and all of you can go back to your families.
So it drives me nuts because it's like, once again, it's another situation. It doesn't matter what I do, it's still wrong, correct? So if I never mention support ever and I literally go out of business because people don't support because I don't say anything about it, well, obviously I did something wrong there because I was dumb. I went out of business. If I mention it too much, well, now it's obnoxious. I'm a beggar. It's like, so where's the happy medium? And that's what we got to find. We're in the middle. Is it acceptable? And I agree. The scorn situation is the polar opposite of who I want to be on the internet. I don't want to sit here and become Mr. Shill, Mr. Ask, Mr. Beg. I just want to have fun with you guys. Chill, hang out, enjoy games, and then, hey, the support will come. And that's always been my philosophy. If I'm enjoying what I'm doing on the stream and you're enjoying what I'm doing on the stream and the content is that kind of reciprocal relationship, and we're all enjoying each other's company, then the support will just naturally come. And in general, it does. It's just those times when it doesn't that maybe you need a little nudge in the right direction and say, hey, remember, you can support because if I have a bad day, this is going to set me back.
But that's entirely contradictive, DSP. Those two things can't be true at the same time. If your philosophy really is that the support comes in if people are having a good time and you're having a good time, then it only stands to reason that the days that you're not making that support, you're not getting any tips, you're not getting any memberships, is because people are not having a good time. That little nudge in the right direction is not something that you should be doing. What you should be doing is taking a look at the content that you're producing and trying to understand what people don't like about it as opposed to the day prior. The solution is never to rattle your cup of coins in front of somebody's face expecting them to put in money that they don't want to give you. That's why people call you an e-beggar. There's nothing wrong with making money online, and there's definitely nothing wrong with making money off of the content that you produce and put online. The problem stems from that little nudge in the right direction, as you call it.
And a lot of people just don't like that. The real problem here, let's be actually transparent and honest now, is that everyone out there just misrepresents me. Like you just said in your suggestion, and by the way, thank you for this. This is actually a really good suggestion box topic. I'm glad we talked about it today. And thank you for tackling it with a nice, rational mindset, because a lot of other people would have come at this in a very negative way and you didn't. So thank you so much. His name is Goki, I think. Thank you for this. This is a good one. The way I see it is because so many assholes out there always misrepresent me, people have, sadly, a very unfair notion of the fact that they think that all I do is sit here all day talking about income. Did I literally mention it once on today's stream until I started reading the suggestion box? Nope. Would I have mentioned it? Maybe.
Absolutely, yes, he would have mentioned it, even if it wasn't as blatant as, hey guys, I need support. It would have been a subtle beg guaranteed. There definitely would have been a hint, nudge, nudge moment, you guys should become members for this channel. It happens pretty much every single time that he decides to split the part for DSP Reacts. In fact, it happens pretty much every single time he splits a part during gameplay as well. That's why the detractor community refers to it as an unrecorded beg segment, because he cuts the recording and goes to take his little stand-up break or whatever, and right when he goes to do it, he decides to beg. Just because he hasn't begged yet during this very particular pre-stream doesn't make it the rule. It in fact makes it the exception.
I probably would have mentioned it when we started with the React show, because during the React show, that's how that channel makes profit, is just memberships. That's it. There's no ad revenue to be had on the React channel because everything gets claimed, but the memberships are the reason why that channel is profitable for me. So yeah, during that show, I'll say, hey, just so you know, become a member today. You can suggest clips for next week's show. Maybe if you support the streams today with a super chat or a tip, that would be great, because that's how I make my living on this channel. That's what makes it profitable, right? And I'll do it a few times during the show, but I try not to make it so intrusive. Once we're reacting to stuff, I don't try to interact or interrupt my reactions with that shilling and stuff like that. You know what I mean? But I think what it is I'm misrepresenting. People will take the few times in a giant stream, you know, I turn on the stream 10:45 a.m. I start talking around 11:15. That talk segment, which is the level 1 podcast, goes on to like 12:45. And then we have 3+ hours of gameplay or 3+ hours of reacting, or whatever it is I do. They'll take 5-6 hours of a stream, and they'll take the 3 to 4 times that maybe I plugged, and they'll say, here's Phil's stream, and they'll just edit together. I think that was the whole stream. Like, what? This is the same thing they used to do with This Is How You Don't Play. Take the awful clips out of the playthrough. That's like a 20-hour playthrough, but make a 1-hour montage of the times when I failed. Oh, that was Phil's playthrough. Well, it wasn't.
But in a way it was though, DSP, because if you can get 1 hour out of 20 of you being absolutely ignorant as shit to every mechanic in the game, that's far too much time spent. And it's the exact same way when it comes to your pre-streams and your gameplay. Your pre-stream is about 2 hours long every single day. If we can pull out a 20-minute schedule segment out of every single pre-stream, that just proves that there's far too much schedule segment in every pre-stream. When it comes to the subject of your begging segments, it only gets worse because there are the subtle begs, there are the sneak begs. Like I I said, times where you don't outright ask for support, but you hint around it. You beat around the bush trying to not make yourself look as bad as you actually are. So yeah, while you might not be outright mentioning that you need more support during your schedule segment, you are saying that these games aren't making enough support, and you don't know what you're gonna do because these RPGs are killing the channel, and the channel's on the downward trend. That's a beg segment, DSP. That makes the entire 20-minute schedule segment a beg. I don't know how you don't understand that, but it's very clear to everybody who watches your content. But these are the semantics that he has to play in order for him to say that he's telling the truth and he's an honest guy. Anybody who's got to play semantics that bad is not telling the truth, I promise you that.
That was 1/20th of the playthrough. You've ignored 90% of the playthrough to push a narrative. And that's how people represent me on the internet, and it makes me look far worse than what reality really is. Are there times when, yes, absolutely, I go too far with it? Yes, absolutely there are. And you guys absolutely have the right to call me out on that and say, stop, you're being overbearing, you're being annoying, you know, we get it. We want to support you, we will if we can. Stop fucking asking. And that's fine if you do that. I appreciate those who are honest with me about that kind of stuff. But the truth is, when someone says something to me here, let's just look at this. It doesn't turn into this long, drawn-out 10 to 30-minute segment about how giving you money. What are you talking about?
Probably talking about those exact schedule segments that you've done pretty much every single day for the past, what, 2 or 3 weeks now? Where you're always talking about how nobody is showing up to the Final Fantasy VII streams and support is way down and you need to quit playing Baldur's Gate 3 because the views have completely plummeted and you're not making as much ad revenue on the back end. Those are beg segments, dog. But go ahead, DSP, continue to be ignorant and not acknowledge the fact that you're constantly begging. I'm sure all of your true dents are gonna love it.
No, really, what are you talking about? A 10 to 30-minute segment about giving me money. You really think that happens? You actually think that I will stop my content? Like, I'll stop playing a game. Oh, man, this is a great game, but by the way, guys, we have to stop playing for 30 minutes to talk about income. What? It's never happened. Like, literally, in my entire streaming history, that's never happened. Even that scorn moment you're talking about, that didn't happen. Right? So, that's what drives me nuts. You literally have cited an example that doesn't happen, but you probably do think it happens. Why? Because you watch the fucking detractor content.
And this is just DSP creating a straw man because the person never specifically said anything about halting any sort of gameplay in order to do the 10 to 30 minute beg segment. That's something that DSP added and apparently a prerequisite that needs to be met in order for anything this person says to be true. It's straw man arguments like this that prove how much of a weasel and a coward DSP honestly is. He can't acknowledge any of these suggestions or criticisms from an honest standpoint. He has to warp and skew all of the words and sentences that are being used in order to make himself in the right.
All right, here's the honest response that I will give to anyone who has a suggestion that's like, man, there's this one thing about you that I really don't like. I like that you beg too much, right? Stop watching detractor content. Because if you were actually here watching the real content, you would understand that what they say is false. It is a false narrative to push an agenda where they will get clickbait and views. It has nothing to do with reality. Most people who are on my streams on a daily basis never complain that I'm asking too much for anything. It's just not reality.
Just because people in your cult aren't speaking out, DSP, doesn't mean that you're in the right, and it doesn't mean that you're doing the morally justifiable thing. These people have been conditioned to accept this behavior from you. And that's why I really don't hold any contempt towards the dents that you have, because I understand that they are weak-minded and weak-willed. That if they had any sort of brains left in their skull, that they would be able to get out of the pygnosis. But not everybody has a will of their own, and not everybody has 2 brain cells bashing around in their skull. Some people are just, you know, left unfortunate. But there is something in there that I absolutely agree with. And I actually heard Shinko say the exact same thing the other day, so big up Shinko. I think that every detractor to some extent should watch some sort of raw DSP content, because I think that that raw experience really puts into perspective exactly what DSP is and all of the flaws that come with him and his streams. Because again, anybody who doesn't have to think about breathing will be able to come out of that experience a detractor anyway.
It's not in any realm of you know, matter-of-fact stuff. But that's the thing. You watch it out of context. You watch it on a channel that only highlights that toxic shit. And that's what you're going to see. You know what I'm saying? So, and again, that's the thing. Like, what I'm saying now, right? They absolutely, positively will not ever take what I'm saying right now verbatim. Because it's true. Instead, they'll take a few clips about my response to this. Phil butthurt about people saying he's an e-beggar. And then they'll take 3 clips and here it is. I'm butthurt about it. That's what I mean. That's what they do. I don't know how you can't figure that out yet. I mean, that's their shtick for the last 10 years.
I love when he says things like that because these clips are the exact opposite of that. All of the context is there. The entire segment, in fact, is here. There's nothing to be misconstrued about it, DSP. They can hear everything you're saying. The only thing that I'm adding is my opinion. But of course, detractors will never use this verbatim. They'll just take it out of context and clip it, of course.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like, I appreciate the feedback. I agree with you. I don't want to be someone who's just about income. I think that's terrible, okay? I try not to harp on it. Every once in a while, if there's a reason to bring it up. Like, yes, when the fake gifted memberships were happening, I needed to let you know because thousands were coming out and people were like, what the hell's going on to the channel? You know, I'd explain it. I'd explain why there's no more pop-ups for it, why I'm not doing shout-outs for the fake ones, why I'm trying to ban these people as it happens so it doesn't affect the streams in a big negative way. I mean, people were even saying, this sucks, we can't even chat. When they give these fake memberships, the whole chat's flooded for like 10 minutes. This is terrible, right? So, that being said, I understand what you're saying, but please get the fact that what you're saying, 10 to 30-minute segments about income don't happen unless I get a question like this and we're just addressing the suggestion box. That's it. We don't have giant segments where, well, I'm just going to stop making content today until people contribute. Here, I'm going to turn the webcam off until someone sends me a nice, fresh 20.
And again, this is not something that this person said specifically. This is something that DSP is addressing that nobody said. You don't have to turn off the webcam or stop any sort of gameplay to do a 10 to 20 minute beg. You're actually surprisingly good at just incorporating it into all of the other segments. It's not subtle, it's not disguised, and it's definitely not pleasant, but you do always manage to jam it in there somehow. And I think that in and of itself is kind of a talent. Being able to turn every single discussion into some sort of way to beg for money.
All right. When the 20 bucks rolls in, I'll turn the camera back on and we'll continue making content. I don't do that. I swear you people act like I do sometimes. I don't do anything like that. You know, I'm about making the content and enjoying it with you. That's it. I don't have this fucking demands. Like I have my content on ransom, right? You better listen. If you don't contribute in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to punch through this piece of artwork. I'm going to smash this on my knee and the whole setup will be fucked up forever because you didn't contribute. Do I do that stuff?
No, of course, DSP, you don't do any of that because that would actually be fun and entertaining and something out of the ordinary. That's far too creative for you. You'd much rather just sit here and bore everybody to death and then tell them that they need to give you money. That's more your shtick.
I don't, you know. Anyway, it's a misconception. It is. It's a misconception. Don't watch detractor content. I mean, literally, most of this, the responses I can say to people in these, just don't watch detractor content. Just be here for the streams and ignore the white noise, and you'll like it. If you would just watch my stuff, you'd like it. But you don't. You watch the detractor content as a supplement. And then you come here and complain when it doesn't happen. You know, that stuff's not happening.
If you guys just don't listen to any of the criticism, the slop that I give you is actually really good, I promise. Like I said, you just can't listen to any of the criticism. Also, the way that he worded that made it sound like people were coming to his streams and complaining that he wasn't begging because they expected him to beg because they watched detractor content. And that is definitely not the case. Nobody is going to DSP's content and asking him to beg.
Okay. Oh, my stupid nose is bothering me now because now this room is incredibly stuffy because of the heat and it kills my sinuses. Okay. Shorten the podcast. Your past recent podcasts are nothing but scheduled talk about support and Q&A. Here we go again. There is no 30-minute segment about support. You're wrong. Stop saying that.
Again, a completely fake argument with nobody because he never said the word 30 minutes, or at least you didn't read it. He simply said that your pre-stream is nothing but schedule begging and Q&A, which is entirely true. I know that you think that you're dunking on this person by talking to the person before them, but that's not how this shit works, Chief.
If you don't have any topics for the podcast, why try to artificially extend it? Get right to gameplay. You complain games are too long and you don't have any time to play them. I think shortening the podcast will help alleviate this issue. Never said I don't have time to play them. I have said that they're too long. I never said I don't have time to play games. I don't know what you're talking about there. I know you'll say, we'll just come back to when the podcast, we'll come back when the podcast is over. Ask yourself, why should someone do that? Because there's a podcast scheduled for the morning. And if you don't want to watch the podcast, you come to the stream after it's over. That's like saying, man, I really want to watch the nightly news that starts at 9 p.m. But God damn it, there's an hour of sitcoms that happen from 8 to 9. Why can't they just cancel all the sitcoms and start the news at 8? Because that's the fucking broadcast schedule, stupid. You come to, when you want to see something live, you attend when it starts. My gameplay starts traditionally around 12:45 p.m. Pacific time. You know there's 3 hours of gameplay around 1 p.m.-ish. Why would you come for the scheduled podcast at 11:15 and complain that there's a podcast? Don't attend the podcast. Like, oh my God.
And while I don't agree with the way that DSP addressed it, and I do think that the suggestion is that the pre-stream should be much shorter if he has nothing to talk about, the person definitely worded this incorrectly and came off kind of like a dummy. That's really all I have to say about that one in all honesty.
Yikes. Like, what is going on with people? There you go. Dentronic says, like ordering breakfast after the kitchen moved on to lunch. No, you know, it's the opposite of that. You show up at breakfast and you're yelling at the kitchen, why aren't you putting out dinner? It's breakfast, stupid. You're early. You can come back when dinner is served. Don't demand that the business completely change the way it operates because you can't adhere to a schedule. Like, what are you talking about?
But there's a more apt analogy to this DSP that it revolves around food. And no, it's not a sandwich shop. I apologize. If you want to go with the breakfast into lunch thing, I don't know why you picked dinner, but let's go with lunch because that makes more sense. It's as if you were serving the grease from the griddle because you ran out of food. You actually ran out of eggs, bacon, and sausage. And someone just suggests that you move on to lunch since you ran out of food. That way they actually have something to engage with. They have something to eat. They can have some sort of product. And instead you just tell them to come back when lunch is being served because you actually want to just serve the grease from the griddle. You think that that's a product that people actually want because they line up outside to point and laugh at you. Because that's exactly what your pre-stream is. It's filled with people who just want to come and point and laugh at you and clip it because you have nothing to talk about. And instead of just going to the gameplay, you insist on just sitting there and talking about nothing or the same things on loop.
Good Lord. All right. Engage with chat more. You don't really talk with chat during gameplay unless it's to moderate, tell chat to stop going off topic, or to read a super chat. You say it's a chill environment, but you yell at people when they don't talk about your gameplay. Maybe if you chat with people who go off topic, it can lead to interesting and meaningful conversations. Before I continue with that, I do try to engage with my chat. The problem is what you're addressing. Again, you can tell this person just watches Detractor content and doesn't watch my content. Because the detractors will highlight the moments when I get upset if someone derailed the chat and say, oh, see, this is all filled in on stream today. When in reality, that was 1/40th of what happened on the stream. It was one moment.
But the fact that the moment exists at all DSP is the problem. You should not be getting upset with your chat because they're talking about whatever they want to talk about. That's what chats do sometimes. If you want the chat to engage with you, you need to do something that's going to engage them. You need to do something that's going to entertain them and draw them back into talking about whatever you're doing on screen. Just getting upset with them and telling them that they need to quit derailing is absurd. And again, it's surprising that it even happens to begin with. It doesn't matter how often it happens.
No, what I find is if I'm playing a game and the chat disengages from it, right? Like this has happened with a couple Final Fantasy streams. I'm doing the open world content and then people just start talking about other topics, right? I don't care if you talk about other topics, but understand if you're talking about shit that I don't know about, why are you doing that in my chat when you know the streamer is not interested? Like, let's talk about sports and baseball. I don't fucking know anything about sports and baseball, so why are you talking about it in my chat? This has not ever been a sports discussion stream, so why are you derailing the chat with that? You know that's not a topic I'm interested in. There's probably 7,000 other streams going on right now of someone who love to talk about sports. This is not one of them. So why are you derailing the chat?
Because maybe they're talking to somebody else in chat, DSP. Maybe they're conversating amongst themselves about things that they like. Yeah, they could absolutely go to a different stream and talk to other people who would have a similar interest, but maybe they don't want to talk over there. Maybe they want to talk to the people that are in your chat because they like them for some reason. I understand that you're a narcissist, but these streams, despite you being the main focal point, are not entirely about you. They should to some extent be about your audience, about your community, and they should be able to come into your chat and talk amongst themselves about things that are even tangentially related to you. The iron grip that you keep on your chat is honestly baffling, and I don't understand why you would want to do that. It seems like far more work than it's worth, and all it really does is make you look like a crazy person.
You see? Those are the things that go crazy. If you're talking about something I understand or whatever, you want to ask my opinion and you tag me in the chat, I always talk about that. Hell, I mean, half the time I'm playing the Yakuza games, the discussions we're having is completely off topic from what's going on in the game. So again, stop watching Detractor content, okay? All right, ready? Reduce the wait period to chat. A 24 hours wait to chat is absurd. There's streamers that have as many trolls as you do and maybe more, and they don't do this because even they know this is an insane wait period. This is single-handedly ruining any chance you have in retaining newcomers. If the trolling is as bad as you say it is, get more moderators. You've had trust issues about giving people wrenches since the rogue mod incident. I don't know what that means because there's been more than one mod who's basically been like a catfish situation. Rogue mods happen. It shouldn't make you distrusting of people. If someone wants to help in moderation, make them a mod. Okay, so literally, here we go again.
Before he starts going in, the rogue mod situation that he's talking about is more than likely Anani. I don't know anything about Anani, I'm just letting you know that that was the situation. But this person is right on both accounts. I can't imagine that 24-hour sub-only mode is doing DSP's channel any favors. Sure, maybe it keeps out some of the detractors, maybe it keeps out some of the bot accounts, but he could definitely stand to lower it. 24 hours is ridiculous and almost a guaranteed way to not have people come back, because what fun is a stream that you can't chat in? You might as well just go watch VODs. And DSP definitely should have more moderators. He should be more trusting of some of his more loyal dents. I'm not saying he should just be handing out moderation to everybody willy-nilly, but he definitely needs more mods because he can't continuously lean in manual ban people as frequently as he does. It's definitely a derailment of the content and very distracting to everybody, especially because he's constantly calling it out. It seems like every other time that he's got to lean in manual, he lets everybody know that that's exactly what he's doing and why. There's just no need for that, and it should be handled by the moderation team and not a part of the content at all.
So what other streamers do is different from what you do. That automatically makes it better. Okay, what streamers are you talking about? Because you're saying people with more trolls than me. Well, who has more trolls than me? Wings of Redemption? I don't know. Who else has more trolls than me? Not many. You know, take that from the mouth of Mike Klum himself. when he was doing the research for this documentary. He said to me, my God, at first I thought that you were exaggerating, but now that I've actually done the research, you absolutely have probably the biggest troll community I've ever seen. And he's been involved with Boogie. He's been involved with other people you guys don't even know, other documentaries he's working on and failed and he didn't do them. People who are like massive lolcow shit on the internet. And he outright admitted mine's the worst.
Well, that either shows how ignorant Mike Klum actually is about the lolcows and the lolcow communities, or how hard you actually fell for the Mike Klum sell, because you are far from the most known lolcow or the biggest community surrounding a lolcow. The reality is that the detractor community is actually really tame in comparison to other lolcows. Chris Chan can't even leave his house without being photographed every time. In Girl World, don't even get me started, those bitches are ruthless. So again, in comparison, the detractor community is actually really chill and just comes around to point and laugh at the guy and move on. There's definitely some people who take it further than that, but they're few and far between. DSP is just so invested in his victim complex that he can't see reality for what it really is. He's pignatized himself. Truly a fate worse than death.
So I don't know who you're talking about, who you think has more trolls than me. You're probably wrong. All right. But the fact is, they probably thrive on that shit. The reason they even have anyone showing up to their streams is because they don't moderate. So because they don't have any content to offer, all they do is lolcow shit. So when the drama starts, that's when they profit. So let the trolls come into my chat and insult me and send super chats that are insulting me and do all this shit. You know, so I don't do that. I don't play that game. I don't. My content is valid. My content is positive. My content has meaning and merit to an audience that wants to see it. It's not the time that Phil turns on his stream, everyone just rip him a new asshole as a lolcow, and that's how he profits. So if you want to see the lolcow marathon shit, you can go watch other content creators who even are on a fucking podcast called that, and you can leave me the fuck alone.
You can live in denial all you want, DSP, but living in denial doesn't make you not a lolcow. That's not how this shit works. Your behavior has made you a lolcow and there's no going back for you. I'd like to think that it would just be a wiser idea to capitalize on it and be able to monetize it in some way, but you're incapable of that. Because you would have to take yourself less serious. You'd have to lean into the joke. And you just can't do that because you so desperately want to view yourself as some legitimate businessman who's made his own way in the world. When the reality is you're nothing more than an internet charity case.
But it's hilarious. So reduce asking for support. Okay, valid suggestion. When you actually get into the meat of it, claiming that I do 10 to 30 minute segments just asking for support, as if I just stop making content to talk about it and refuse to make content until someone supports my stream. False, you watch too much detractor content.
Again, he's just putting a bunch of words into that person's suggestion, and he has no idea what he's talking about and basically punching air. Very cool.
Shorten the podcast. Just show up after the podcast is done. There's a schedule for a reason.
Just showing up after the pre-stream doesn't change the fact that you have nothing to talk about on your pre-stream and it's a waste of time.
Engage with chat more. I do. Stop watching detractor content. Reduce the wait period to chat. Stop watching lolcows and detractor content.
I have no idea how a suggestion to lower the amount of time required to be subscribed in order to chat is some sort of detractor content thing. I know that they mentioned that other lolcows have more detractors and that they don't have the subscribers only mode, but on its face, that's actually has nothing to do with detractor content or lolcows. The point stands as a detriment to your chat.
So stop watching detractors, stop watching detractors, stop watching detractors. Oh, by the way, learn how to read a schedule. Thanks for the suggestions. That was a good one, huh? If you haven't noticed yet, okay, most of the problems that people seem to have with me actually aren't problems that they have with me. It's problems that they have based on watching detractor content. Like, you watched out of context, negative, defamatory content about me that's seriously molded to do that, to insult me and make me look bad, and then you come and complain without actually having watched the real me to know that it's not valid stuff. That's a you problem, not a me problem. And I hate to say it, more and more over these years, I'm seeing, really, this is the problem.
So the fact that people don't like DSP is apparently a them problem and not a DSP problem. All right. And again, this is the thing with detractor content, is most of it is based off of clips from DSP's own stream. In fact, I clipped this myself over on Atlas the Clip Keeper. That's where you can get all of these videos without the commentary, if that's your thing. And this clip, this segment, without being sped up, without my commentary, is 26 minutes long. I don't know what person in their right mind is going to be able to sit through this entire 26-minute clip of DSP and walk away with the idea that he's not a scumbag and that he's actually a super chill, meaningful content creator. And to give it even more context, that's 26 minutes out of a 2-hour pre-stream. That's a very large chunk of a pre-stream. So I don't know where he gets off thinking that if you just watch his content that you're going to come away with a positive view on him. That's not how this shit works, dog.
It's people just don't want to take 5 seconds to fucking see who the real person is or what the real content is. Instead, they just want to laugh along with the meme, and it makes you fucking stupid. I'm sorry, it does. There's just so many, really, frustrating people on the internet who just don't take 5 seconds to think for themselves. They just follow that sheep mentality of everyone hates this guy, so it must all be true. I'm not saying I'm perfect, and I'm certainly not saying that I'm flawless, and I'm certainly not saying that I haven't done stupid shit over the years. I have. And it's right for you to call me out on it when it happens. But when this is supposed to be the suggestion box, and literally all the stuff you just suggested is stuff that doesn't happen, I don't know what else to say. You know? Stop watching the shit that makes you feel that way. I have to blow my nose. We're going to do another suggestion, and then we'll do shout-outs. Here we go. Hold on. My nose is bothering me.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. If you just stop watching Detractor content, apparently you'll actually like DSP. That's coming from his own mouth. For anybody that was wondering about that last suggestion, it's from OP Boone. I have a clip of that as well over on Atlas the Clip Keeper, but we're not going to look at it today. Instead, we're going to look at some comments from my last video because they're very meaningful to me. So, of course, shout out to all of my members because those are the only comments I'm looking at. Ack. Paul Turner 4684 says, why is there never a plan B? Phil is always blindsided when something doesn't go his way, but it's never his fault. Well, I think that's actually a simple one, Paul. It's because planning ahead actually requires any sort of intricate thought going on in DSP's mind. It requires him to weigh and balance options, to actually think things through, and he's very compulsive. Also, it's far easier to just let things happen to him and not think about it and then just complain and whine on the internet so that people will give him money. Because it doesn't matter how many times he slips and falls on his own banana peel, somebody's gonna be there to help him up with a 20 in hand. Jack Nightmare 1975 says, this dude is so out of touch with everything. It's amazing he doesn't run out of air. Well, unfortunately for all of us, DSP actually shares the same air that we do. So just think about that every time DSP wastes all of that oxygen talking in a loop. Think about all of that oxygen that could have been yours. Shame how the world is so unjust, isn't it? And Iron Aesthetic says, first impressions are everything. No shower, no shave, pajamas, ill-fitting shirts, hungover, messy hair, pig skin, burps, snorts, sweats. Well, if that isn't the best first impression I've ever heard, Iron Aesthetic, I don't know what's gonna satisfy you. Of course, I want to give a big shout out to everybody who watched the video, especially if you made it this far. Hopefully I'll catch all of you guys in the next video, but until then, make sure that you check out other Detractor content and dive deeper into that. Snore tags.